Next time on a very spooky fine dining podcast, the season 1 finale, TGI Fridays the 13th. Oh, you betcha, pineapple's gonna hit the fan as Michael's son Juicy, or in this episode, Juice's son Voorhees, goes on a murderous rampage, and no one is safe. It gets real spooky, it gets real bloody, and not everyone's gonna make it to the end of the episode. Who will live, who will die? Listen to Fine Dining, the search for the most mediocre restaurant in America, break down a trip to TGI Fridays based on the atmosphere, the service, and the food, and try not to be scared to death. Hear the thrilling finale of Fine Dining, Wednesday, October 25th, wherever you get your podcasts.
This week, I've gone on strike from not having an opinion. So grab your placards and join me on the picket line that is my radio station. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and this is Non-Censored. As usual, I am joined by my faithful producer, Martin, who this week has been producing from home in Berkhamsted due to those dreadful strikes. But we've still had fun, haven't we, Martin?
Oh yes, it's been so much fun. Being able to sort of have the dog in the room and, of course, get all the work done at the same time.
Absolutely wonderful. And sometimes it really does help one's relationships not to actually see one's face in real life. But it's been a great week. We've got some wonderful highlights to share with our listeners. But there were some things we just didn't have room to include. We had relationship expert Tracy Cox in the studio talking to us about Rupert Murdoch, who I think we can all say is the #1 bachelor. Now it looks like Jerry Hall is going to be divorcing him. What do you think's next for Rupert Murdoch, Martin? Who could he get with?
Well, he's very eligible, certainly from a financial point of view, and he's got a lot of power. So who knows? Whoever it is probably going to be a very lucky lady.
I mean, the Queen is now single, so that's something.
Well, that. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of eligible ladies out there, and I suppose the Queen would be #1 on the top of that list.
Thursday marked the 6th year anniversary of the Brexit vote. We had a little party in the studio, and Martin was there on Zoom. We had some good British fish and chips and ramrod straight banana splits. It was really wonderful. We looked over at all the wonderful things Brexit had achieved and done for us, and we had a little dance. Even you, didn't you, Martin?
I did. I had a little move around. I mean, it wasn't something that I was celebrating per se, but it's always nice to see a bit of frivolity in the room.
Anyway, we were delighted once again to be joined by the Prime Minister himself, Boris Johnson. Me and him, we go way back. We're very good friends. We caught up with him on the strikes, the war in Ukraine, and his recent sinus operation. First, I must ask, how are you feeling after your sinus operation?
It was very serious. At one point I did think I was staring down the barrel, a big snotty barrel. But luckily I'm okay, and the good people of my private health insurance sorted me out. So I'm feeling ready, right as rain, stiff upper lip, and all that. And I think it's important to remember that there is a war in Ukraine going on, and I think that is important that I mention that at this point.
Yes, that's very important, very relevant, may I say. But also, sinus problems does seem to be a feature of government at the moment. There's a few people who suffer from it. I think Michael Gove also. I mean, I don't know if you have a little support group going on for people with sinus issues.
He once came out of the toilets with his nose bleeding. I don't know. He must have really, really struggled with it that night. Hopefully he will get it sorted out. Because I don't know if he's a good chap, but he is Michael Gove.
I mean, there's lots to get through. I'm conscious that you don't have much time.
No.
This Friday, you were going off to have tea with Prince Charles in sunny Rwanda.
Yes.
Now, on the government's Rwandan policy, you've said that people need to keep an open mind. And are you going to try and say this to Charles, who quite publicly, it said, is not a fan of the Rwandan policy? Do you think you can charm him over a cup of tea?
You know, I'll say to Charles, and I tell you what, he's a good friend of mine now, and he sends me memes. He sends me little memes. Some of them are slightly offensive. But, you know, you have to move with the time. You know, he's an older chap, and you know, everyone has to evolve. The line was different back then. But he's a very good man. And I know that once we sit out there in Rwanda and he sees the beautiful trees, and I show him some of the history of Rwanda, and the weather's lovely there. It really is. So I'm sure that he'll come round and realise that it's a much better place to live than the UK anyway.
Yes, it's so sunny. This is what I say. There's all this controversy about it, you know, human rights record and Kagame forcing, not letting journalists reports really going on. You go, yes, but they've got great weather.
And what I will add on that is all of that stuff that you said is terrible. But what I do is ignore it.
I think that's a wonderful way of dealing with anything. And I mean, the thing with Prince Charles is he's got this great combination of being wokey and ineffectual, which is what you want from an ethics advisor. And jolly good laugh.
Yes, an on sense of humour. Can I remind you that there is a war in Ukraine going on at the moment? And when I was over there, they all go, Boris, you're doing a great job, and I think you should have more than one wife, and I say I do. No, as a joke, but they're a laugh out there as well. But I tell you, when I was over there, they're big fans of mine. And I think it's a shame that some of the UK don't listen to some of those Ukrainians who are going through war. I would like to remind you to you know, sort of keep their spirits up and stop complaining all the time. You know?
Yes. Talking about whining, we must address the rail strikes. You've talked about them being unnecessary and a terrible idea. If you had to, Prime Minister, sit down in an interview with Mick Lynch, what would you say to him?
I'd say to him, listen, if they want more money, go and get a different job. If that doesn't work, perhaps you can ask a handsome man that you might be having a bit of how's your father with, if he can get you a job at the Foreign Office. But I really think, the main thing I'd say to him, Harriet, is there is a war in Ukraine going on. Yes. And if it wasn't for these rail strikes, then perhaps Putin wouldn't want to take over Ukraine. So
sorry, just to clarify, Prime Minister, you're saying that the rail strikes are directly contributing to the war in Ukraine.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? You don't think that is the guy? I think even Mick Lynch himself would agree with that.
Yes, I feel that's something I don't need to clarify or get any facts with you from. I think you've cleared that up wonderfully.
Look,
now, one final question.
People can look up the facts if they want to, Harriet.
They can. But people don't need to look up the facts, really, do they? They can just go with what we're saying. One final question, Prime Minister. Now, I feel reluctant about asking about this, but I would not, and I'm sure you respect this, Prime Minister, I would not be doing my due diligence as a journalist if I didn't ask what you say about the reports that were in the Times that's now been deleted that claimed you tried to hire your now wife Carrie as Chief of Staff when you were Foreign Secretary.
Right, well. And if you broadcast any of that, I will sue you, Harriet, and you know I will.
It's been a pleasure, as always. Keep looking after your nose and keep winning the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, thank you, Harriet. Good to see you.
Just a quick note, that interview did have to be somewhat redacted and edited down, so it won't be going out in full as we would usually do. Nothing untoward, just perfectly normal. just had a little conversation with Carrie, and she said there are a few things that needed to be taken out.
We had Eshaan Akbar back in the studio. Now, you may remember last week he had a wonderful, innovative idea on how to deal with the strikes of using rickshaws. If you didn't hear it, do check it out. It's on our last week's episode. But this week, he talked about the character of Mick Lynch, and we really, really got to the bottom of just why these straight-talking individuals should not be allowed on TV. Welcome back for our hot and spicy takeaway of the week with our guest, Eshaan Akbar. Eshaan, how are you today?
I'm very well, Harriet. How are you?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. I mean, obviously, it's been a bit tricky with the strikes, getting into work. I managed it. I had to once again use Martin's Uber service, but Martin's
you
been
didn't
stuck
go
at
for the
home all
rickshaw?
week. No, do you know, I thought about it, but I can't be dealing with that in the morning. Just that those tunes, they don't play my kind of music.
Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, I'm sure you could request for the music to be changed, just as I have often requested for the name of this feature to be changed. That might be nice.
Yes, I once again, I don't really understand what your issue is with the name of this feature. Anyway, let's get down to business. What is your hot and spicy takeaway of the week?
Well, it's very interesting, Harry, that you mentioned the rail strikes, because the man seemed to be at the forefront of the rail strikes, a certain Mick Lynch, or Michael Lynch, as he's known on Facebook, has been commended across various parts of the media and the general public, and by general public I mean Twitter, for his straight-talking directness in challenging politicians and other media personalities, and everyone's lauding the way he speaks. Now, my hot and spicy takeaway of the week is this. If all of politics was like this, it would be boring. Politics survives on the fact that no one is telling the truth. No one means what they say. This whole industry is predicated on lies, and we cannot have more Mick Lynches around the political sphere just talking sense, because frankly, it would ruin all of our careers.
That's a very interesting take there. I mean, I don't know if I agree with you about people lying, and I don't think people do that in the media or our politicians. I mean, no one really sort of springs to mind.
Okay, I mean, Harry. I mean, let's just say, you're slightly economical with the truth, and I think that's what makes you so entertaining. I think we all enjoy you for that reason.
Well, thank you for saying I'm entertaining, Eshaan. I don't think I'm economical with the truth. I think I just share the bits that the public need to know about, and the bits that don't, I just sort of get Martin to edit out afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. Never knowingly overtold. That's the little joke that I have.
That's a copyright infringement, isn't it? Surely.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't say it out loud. It's not printed. It's just
Martin. We can't get sued again.
I'll edit myself out.
I mean, producer Martin, would you say you're a straight talker?
Yes, yeah. I'd like to think that I am as often as I can be.
Well, okay, Martin. If you're a straight talker, tell me some things you don't like about me.
Oh well,
and don't mention my race.
What? No, I mean, I wouldn't mention your race, because that's not a.
Why wouldn't you mention my race?
Well, it's not something that I don't like. It's not. I don't. It doesn't occur to me that would be a reason not to like you. I mean, if I had to start somewhere, I'd say that maybe you use some fruity language when talking about me.
So you are saying there's something you don't like about me?
Well, I mean, it's also an important feature in the broadcast journalism fields to be able to say uncomfortable truths and speak your personal truth sometimes.
And if you are really someone who regards themselves as part of the liberal elite, is straight talking really LGBTQ friendly? I don't think so.
No, a very good point. Very good point.
I'm a diversity correspondent. I notice this stuff. If you're constantly straight talking, I feel like you're excluding a large group of people, actually.
Yes, 100%. Producer Martin, what do you make of this? You've been very quiet.
I am. I mean, I tend to feel that I suppose we would have less to talk about if everyone was more straight talking, but perhaps the world would be a better place.
Oh, for goodness sake, Martin!
Please.
I mean, the world is the way it is. Someone talking is not going to change the winds of climate change or economic inequality. Just have fun for the time you're here on this rapidly fireball ball of gas that we're sat on.
I would argue that that people's actions aren't necessarily going to make the world better. So
Absolutely.
just don't do any of that.
So no actions and no words.
Yes, exactly.
And no
I
doing
think
nothing.
I think that should be the Tory manifesto. No actions, no words. Lots of fun. Now, earlier in the week, there was an incredibly upsetting story in the Daily Mail that claimed builders have gone woke. Well, we talked to Tom, a wokey builder, and it was a hell of an interview. I really put him in his place, don't I, Martin?
Well, he was a really stand-up guy, I thought.
Stand up. He could barely stand up. He was a quivering wreck. He couldn't cope with my line of questioning. He was so flustered. I felt bad for him. This has already racked up thousands of views on social media, which I think
indeed.
shows that I won. I won that interview. I won. I won those wokies. They thought they were going in to watch. They're like, oh, we don't watch Harriet's show. Well, they did. They came in like little wokey flies into my web, along with Tom, who was already flailing around, and I am the winner.
I suppose a lot of people don't consider conversations to be something that you win, but you certainly did give him a good talking to, and really just lovely bloke. We ended up having a little chat afterwards, and has some really interesting things to say. Just nice guy.
I think that says it all, Martin. Anyone who wants to have a little chat with you for no reason. Anyway, let's take a listen. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for calling in. I'm very good. Already sensing a bit of wokeness. The fact that you asked me how I was, I think I already know what side of the debate you are on, Tom. Are you?
Well, just nice to ask people how they are. Just sort of normal.
Okay, well,
normal
all right, Tom. Don't get upset. So, do you identify as a woke builder?
I'm a builder. Yeah, I work for a construction firm. Yeah. We don't use the word woke, but I can see it's being used a lot by other people. It's I get it. I completely get it.
And Tom, do you tell us a bit about your life? Do you have a white van?
Well, I don't have my firm drives a white van,
right.
And sometimes it's my job to drive it. It's not my van.
So you're trying to distance yourself from the white van. There is that what's going on?
Well, no distance. I'm often.
You're like, no,
driving it.
It's not my van. I just get in it when I'm told, and otherwise, I have a little. What's the car you have, producer Martin? One of those.
Oh, it's a Prius.
Yes, a little Prius.
Oh, yeah, it's a nice car.
Nice
thank
car.
you.
Right.
It's quite fuel efficient, I find, and I got a very good price for it.
Okay, right, let's have enough of that. So what I want to know, Tom, is I don't know if you've read this shocking survey, which says that builders are now very woke. I think it talked about how they 2/3 shun fried breakfast, and 3/4 shun fried breakfast.
Okay.
3/4 of tradesmen discuss their feelings with colleagues, and nearly half say they are history buffs.
Right.
Now, is this something you recognise?
Well, I've read about. I know what history is.
You know what history is.
It's interesting to talk about sometimes. It's one of the subjects that exist in the world that you can just sort of share some opinions on and talk about things you're interested in and. Ask people if they saw that program or if they've read that book. It's a nice.
Sorry, Tom. Can I stop you there, Tom? There's no need to get upset about it. I'm just asking you some questions. I'm just trying to find out what happened, Tom, to the good old-fashioned days where builders used to have their lovely little pot bellies and their little fags and their little cans of beer, and they used to appreciate the female form. Why are we moving away from that? Why all this change? It's been about, Tom, 15 years, I reckon, since I last got whistled at by someone on a building site. And
Yeah, I would hope that
what
that
is
kind of
what
thing
is happening?
on its way out,
What is happening? Why does everyone have to be a muesli eating yoga expert?
Well, you don't have to be a yoga eating.
Oh, you don't
expert,
have
right?
to.
You know,
So there's a choice here. Is that what you're saying?
Same way you don't have to have a pot belly. You can be a builder and just sort of be. You can do whatever you like. You could be any shape, or eat any food, or read any book, or be interested in anything.
Sounds like you have some quite out there ideas. And Tom, now listen. While I've been talking to you, not producer Martin, because he's quite lame at these kind of things. But one of my runners has been looking and found you on Facebook, Tom.
Oh,
and do you know what they found?
Right. Oh, I don't know what my privacy settings are. Maybe I should sort those out.
Everyone should have a look at their privacy settings, because you share all sorts that you're not aware of. And
thank you, Martin. This is why you fail as a producer with comments like that.
Oh.
Tom, your Facebook profile is a picture of a dog with a silly hat.
Oh, yeah. That's my dog.
Oh, that's quite funny, actually. That's how old? Oh, Sparkles.
That picture was taken when he was a little puppy, when he was about 6 months.
How adorable.
Hang on, so you've called... Look, right, can we stop this loving, please? What are you trying to say? You trying to say that you identify with a fluffy, sparkly dog who wears a silly hat? Is that what you're trying to say?
Just taking a funny picture of my dog.
Taking a funny picture. You haven't just taken a funny picture. You've put the picture on your profile. You're basically identifying yourself with a dog, a famously wokey animal who is...
Yeah, but the hat really suits him. Can you not see? It's a funny picture.
He's a good boy. He looks like a good boy. Is he a good boy?
He's a good boy.
Oh, of course
he's a good boy. He still likes that hat. It's just
that's
too
great.
small for him now, but he still likes to have it.
I bet it looks charming.
Yeah, it's so lovely. Well, have you got a dog?
I do, yes.
Nice. How
Lucy.
old's yours?
She's a little bit older now. She's 8, but she's a lovely black lab. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, they should meet. We should walk them on.
Martin, these kind of inputs are not what I pay you for.
We've got some words from our listeners that we wanted to run past you. Tom, if that's all right. It's just a simple yes or no.
Okay.
Whether you think that these are acceptable things to talk about on a building site.
Right.
Okay, so first up, football.
Yeah, I think that's acceptable to talk about. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Ironing.
Yeah, but we don't talk about it as much, but it'd be a nice, fresh new topic. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about the ironing.
Sausages.
Yeah, happy to talk about sausages on the building site.
Tom, I'm going to have to stop this because you're getting too upset, and I can't. It feels. You're very upset, and I feel uncomfortable. I'm really relaxed. And I think,
very happy to
wow,
answer
Tom, stop pushing this.
questions.
Stop pushing this, Tom. And this week, we also had an interview with a woman. Now, call me old-fashioned, Martin.
You're old-fashioned.
Thanks, Martin.
Sorry, I was just joking.
But I look at the great Margaret Thatcher, who did a lot for women, but realised to do that, you have to make sure other women aren't around spoiling it. So it was a bit risky for me to get our guest in, who is a woman. I am talking, of course, about Nell Frizzell, the journalist and writer, podcaster, and wokey mother. Nell Frizzell is a journalist, author, and in case you somehow missed her prattling on about it in her debut book and associated podcast, The Panic Years, a relatively new mother. She writes for The Guardian, The Observer, and all other of, some would describe rather sort of left-wing mainstream media publications, as well as holding down her regular column in Vogue magazine, writing about motherhood under the title Bringing Up Baby. Nell, welcome to the show.
Lovely to meet you, Harriet. Thank you for having me.
Why do you hate the environment so much?
Well, I suppose I would argue that someone like me who has concerns about the environment actually cares a little more than certain members of the right-wing press who want to continue the kind of lifestyle they've become accustomed to, whether it kills everyone else or not.
I like that. It's very provocative, because I was being provocative because I, of course, don't care about the environment. So I like that. We've already started a bit of banter. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, I listened to some of the Panic Years, and
thank you so much.
Yes, it was a real experience. You started by saying that your late 20s, you were redundant and single, which admittedly does sound dreadful. I mean, do you feel a responsibility encouraging these people that they're all right and they shouldn't be deeply ashamed?
I think a lot of women, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Harriet, look back at any period in their life and feel a mix of sort of shame and nostalgia and a sense of maybe guilt or loss about the things that they did. What were you doing in your late 20s? It's honestly hard to imagine you being that young. But yeah, what were you doing in your late 20s?
Well, I bought a house because I, unlike a lot of people in their 20s, didn't sort of fritter it away on things like coffee and Netflix.
Or face cream, obviously. Not on cosmetics or anything like that. Not exercise or
face cream. Well, actually, no. I mean, face cream is different, isn't it? Because that's quite important. It's important for a woman to invest in things like that. But do you think, I mean, that's the problem today, that you've got these sort of 20-something-year-old women who just sort of, have their avocados and their coffees and as you sort of advocate, sort of fritter around from one job to the next, temping, not really helping anyone, are they?
Well, I think, firstly, a lot of us don't eat avocado anymore because there is quite a lot of controversy about where they're produced and under what kind of circumstances. So that's quite a dated reference, actually, Harriet. But in terms of what the challenges facing women in their late 20s, I think that, we are at the moment living in the after effects of a recession. Lots of us graduated into that in about 2008. There's also a housing crisis. It's very hard for anyone, unless they have a huge amount of privilege, to actually get onto anything like a housing ladder. There's also the question of, fertility, childbearing, contraception. Women are expected to be the ones who sort of carry in their lap the responsibility of whether or not they get pregnant, despite the fact that, the men that they might be sexually involved with take no responsibility for whether they get someone pregnant or not. And so I think when I got to about 28, I realized that I was in this sort of nexus, this locus of stresses where I wanted to get ahead in my career and I wanted to have a serious career where I was taken quite seriously and thought well of by my peers. But I also wanted to be a parent. I knew I wanted to have a family. I wanted to experience that physically. I wanted to go through the kind of transformation of pregnancy. But in my late 20s, it was very hard to meet someone who...
I'm sorry now, I'm going to stop you because you've covered you've covered a number of points here. I mean, one, there's a bit of men blaming going on here, isn't there? I mean, Martin, producer Martin is the male in the room here. I mean, do you feel this? Are you feeling attacked by Nell's words about men not taking responsibility?
Well, as a man, I often feel attacked,
yes.
But I don't know if that's really down to Nell. I mean, I think, each to their own, just live and let live, as the great Paul McCartney, I think, once said.
Maybe producer Martin's not the best example because as a man, he's quite a sort of weak one in body and in mind. I just like to leave room for other people to thrive, I think. Don't want to take up too much room. Well, thank you, Martin. But now, do you feel you're sort of letting women off the hook here? I mean, it's our ovaries. Men, they can't control themselves. They just see sex, sex, sex. That's all they see. That's all they think about. We women, we've got to think about other things, haven't we? So we've got to be more prepared. We can't blame these men if they're throwing around their semen, here and there. They're just doing what men do.
Throwing it around was never quite what I was looking for in a sort of sexual or romantic relationship. That's more of a sort of simian relationship, I think you're thinking of. You have to sort of trick them, don't you? That's how you with these men, right. You have to go, because they're there, throwing the little willies about, and you have to say, look, you basically need to sort of trick them into marriage.
I mean, in a nice way, but that's what I did with my husband, Jonathan. He wasn't going to marry me, and I withheld sex for a long time, and then I did a spot of blackmail. You have to do what you have to do. We have to take the lead here as women in these matters, because that's what we were built for, right?
I can imagine it would be quite a relief for Jonathan, actually, for you to withhold sex. But I never found that particularly satisfying on my part, because I've always had a very high libido, and I was very interested in having, a fulfilling, not to say ambitious sex life. And I did have, while I was looking for a partner, I was also looking for someone who could meet me physically as an equal, and intellectually as an equal, and maybe even financially as an equal. And so I think...
No, sorry, do carry on. It's just...
Distasteful. I imagine,
yeah, it's just quite upsetting. I mean, how did you nail down, if you don't mind me asking, it's a bit of a personal question, but how did you nail down your man?
You're very well within your rights to ask. We met through work. We were working for a refugee organisation, and which I know is something that you probably have your own views about. And we, I would say, fell in love very quickly, if not instantly. And so while we really wanted to be with each other, there were sort of outside systematic obstacles to both of us coming together in a way that was fulfilling. He was changing job. I was trying to look after my career, but I also wanted to have a baby. And that was very difficult. And in the end, what can you do other than...
give up your career?
Compromise.
Oh, compromise,
right.
Yes.
This brings us quite nicely onto a little section of the show that we put together for you now. It's a little section that I like to call Good Mum, Bad Mum. Okay, so
Lovely.
I'm gonna mention a few famous children from history, and we want to know whether you think their mum did a good job or a bad job. Okay,
and no dad. There's no good dad. Bad
it's just
dad.
Good Mum, Bad Mum.
Well,
just
that's
a bit
not
of fun.
relevant. Not relevant.
Just
not relevant.
Right.
The men are,
Okay.
bringing home the bacon, being strong male role models. Yeah.
And the sort of genetic role of men and the caring role of men is something you're not going to explore.
Well, that it's just not the primary role, is it?
Okay.
Well, let's just see how we get on. Okay, so I'll throw a name at you, and you just give me just whatever you think. Okay, so Annie
the orphan.
Annie the orphan. Yes, good mum, bad mum.
I mean, absent mum. I think I would say
absent mum. Correct.
Dead mum.
Yes.
Absent mum.
Dead mum.
Well,
dead mum.
But she did have a mum. It's just, I mean, did Annie turn out well? Were we happy with?
So you could say bad mum.
Well, did the orphan Annie go on to become Annie Lennox? Am I right? It's the same person.
I'm not sure. I followed.
It could
the
be.
Sequel,
it could be the same.
The
same person.
Yeah, very good singer, forthright, ambitious woman. So if orphan Annie is, as I think, Annie Lennox, then I mean, she is the product of her circumstance, and what a talent she brought into the world.
So good mum. Great. Okay. Next up, Bugsy Malone.
Right. But gosh, you're really testing my knowledge of sort of late 70s musicals here. Bugsy Malone is a child gangster. Am I right in thinking?
He was.
Very
He's
gangster.
no longer with us, unfortunately.
No longer with us. Okay. I think the challenges that push young people, particularly young boys, into sort of criminology are really complex and really unfortunate, and probably due to economic inequality in this country, the sort of toxic masculinity that pushes boys into performing their malehood in a particular circumscribed way, that doesn't allow them to maybe explore their nurturing side. They are maybe prohibited from accessing education, things like that. So, I would say I wouldn't blame the mother of a child criminal. I would probably ask where, as a society, our support, focus and investment is going, that those people slip through the net.
And yet, on the other hand,
Well,
I think he stated himself, he could have been anything that he wanted to be with all the talent he had. So hard to blame the mother.
So I think that's a bad mum situation. And also, I'm of the old-fashioned view that it's the mother's job to keep the children out of crime, not the state. Not the state.
Is that why you haven't had children? Because you're worried that you wouldn't be able to keep them out of crime?
No, Nell, that's very silly. I haven't had children for many reasons. I just think I've got a lot to do. I don't really have time. I mean, and also I'm a wonderful aunt. I mean, so you may not know this, but producer Martin
Did you say
is
aunt?
my brother-in-law.
Sorry, okay.
Yes, aunt. Wonderful aunt.
Right.
So producer Martin is my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister, and they have. How many children do you have, Martin?
We have 2.
6, 5.
2 children and a dog. Yes.
Oh, that's a dog. Okay. Well, I mean, I go around there. I sort of bestow them with gifts, and I've done my job.
So you would say you wouldn't be described as a quote unquote miserable aunt, as it were.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
The papers write some terrible things.
Fun.
But yeah.
Well, I've seen that the papers misspell aunt an awful lot when they are writing about you.
There's that first letter, isn't it?
That first letter sometimes goes awry, unfortunately. Yeah.
We just have a couple more.
Keeps happening, and I don't know why.
I know we're pushed for time, so I just really wanted to get an answer for this last one here. We're moving away from good mum, bad mum, and I just wanted to know, Nell, your opinion on the world's number one mum. And we've got 3 choices here, so just would be good to hear what you think. So first up, the Virgin Mary. Okay.
Right.
Second up, the Queen Mum. I think we can all agree that she was a very good mum.
This is very tricky.
And third, the Queen.
Oh,
right.
Oh, this is a hard one, Nell. I'll be interested to see what you say. Who's the better mum?
I suppose, it's maybe predictable, but I would probably put my vote towards the Middle Eastern refugee, living in something close to poverty, who's displaced by a unfair government, who has to raise her child to greatness despite the sort of obstacles put in place by an authority that she has very little power to combat. So the Virgin Mary, I suppose.
Is very similar to the storyline of Paddington, really, isn't it?
Yes. Is it?
Never really.
Very modern interpretation of the Virgin Mary. I think the Queen. I think the Queen. That's what I'm saying. I'm going with the Queen. I think Virgin Mary did a good job, but for me, it is always going to be the Queen. It's always going to be
always. Yeah. All her children, you think, have turned out well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No, it's almost time for you to leave us and carry on sort of being a mother and doing your little writing. So we're going to end with one last question, which was, you've also written several articles on wild swimming. I just wanted to know, how do you feel about that sort of trespassing on private property and getting naked on someone else's land? I mean, what if a child saw you, or even worse, a senior politician? I mean, you could endanger their career.
Right. I suppose that, I swim a lot in the Thames, which is getting sort of polluted terribly by Thames water, lots of, leakages and pumping out of raw sewage. And I suppose I would say that, as someone who works in the media and gets the pleasure to talk to people like you fairly regularly, it's good training in swimming through shit, I suppose.
Oh, wonderful. What a lovely note to end on. It's been a pleasure, and I think
it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Harriet.
At some point?
Yes, my first novel is out in July, and then I've written a follow-up to my non-fiction, The Panic Years, all about early motherhood, which maybe a little triggering for you, Harriet, but hopefully lots of people can draw comfort and reassurance from that.
Well, that's it for this week. Great, wasn't it, Martin?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was got to be in the top 5 podcasts that we've released.
I would say, and Martin, do your bit here, how important it is that people subscribe and leave a review.
Absolutely. Like and subscribe. And leave a review.
Leave a lovely review.
Yes, a nice one, not a
Helps more people find us and discover the truth.
It does. It's kind and useful.
Thanks to Rosie Holt, Brandon Murphy, Eshaan Akbar, Luke Kempner, Jos Norris, Nell Frizzell and Ed Morrish. We'll be back next week. See you then.